Alright everybody, hello and welcome to In the Mixer. As always, I am Sean and I'm super excited about this video because for the first time after two kind of instructional videos or talking videos outlining channel plans and what I want to do with the channel, we are now finally actually going to get to play some actual Football Manager 2018 and I couldn't be more excited about it. I've been racking my brain for the best part of 2 weeks now trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to do for my first save, given that we still have, I think at time of recording, 70 days remaining until the release of Football Manager 2019. And I think one of the better things that I wanted to work on, and one of the better ideas I had, was trying to reflect on something that was really important that happened in the Football Manager landscape within the 2018 series. One of my favourite memories, and certainly one of the most popular memes this year, were all the footballs coming home memes that took place throughout the 2018 World Cup in Russia. Footballs coming home was the movement and terminology surrounding England's World Cup bid. As they continued to grow momentum throughout the course of the tournament, as their results got a bit better, and as they started getting further and further through the knockout stages, we saw scenes across England and on social media of people partying in the streets, thousands of people watching games in pubs. The excitement around that squad and that team, I think, was exceptional, really, out of any of the nations that participated in the World Cup. It may be because, obviously, I live in Australia and a lot of the English-speaking world is really exposed to the Premier League and the people within it, and a lot of the same channels that cover Premier League football within Australia were covering the English national team with either similar broadcast sponsors or similar pundits or whatever it happened to be. So it was really easy to get swept up in their success, and given that Australia kind of didn't do that well, Football's Coming Home really resonated with a lot of the community down here. But whether you just liked the song or you just spotted a meme on your Facebook feed, it was one of the largest movements of the 2018 footballing calendar. So I thought, what better way to pay homage to that than by creating my own series centered around Football Coming Home. So it won't be an England-focused save. It would be more, what if England could have a team that they all got around? What if they could have a team that the entire country supported, no matter where they were from? What if England could have a team that was made up of entirely English players that could go on and represent them in Champions League football and in continental football and in playing against the best teams in the world? So what I intend to do is to start a new save within England, within one of the top two divisions, and what's more English than having a squad full of entirely English players. Now, I know similar saves like this have been done before, but I think it's a really good way to illustrate football coming home in a Football Manager context. And also I think there's some really exciting and interesting clubs in terms of young English talent that are within the game. But what we're going to do is go through all of our clubs within the top two tiers, so the Championship and the Premier League, and figure out which one has the most English players in it and use that as our marker to select a team to become England's representatives both within the Premier League and on the continental stage. And fingers crossed, they also have a good core of English talent themselves so that we aren't just getting pasted for the first couple of years and we can actually start building something relatively quickly before the release of Football Manager 2019. Now, while this screen's loading up, you can see it's setting up the game database as we speak. This will be recorded a little bit differently. It'll be more like a recorded live and probably a bit of a longer video. I'm aiming for around an hour. If it keeps going beyond that, so be it. But to get through all of our transfers, all of our tactics, all of the pre-season period, there may be a couple of cuts here and there if there are lulls or if I say anything incredibly racist that I don't want to be putting onto YouTube. But other than that, it should be pretty much like a Twitch or streaming format where the majority of the gameplay you guys actually see, the majority of clicks you see, we identify our transfer targets and we go from there. Future videos on the channel, they should be relatively shorter. I don't know how people usually consume their media, but I tend to watch more like 10 to 15 minute videos when it comes to Football Manager rather than sitting down and watching Twitch streams. Part of that is because of where I'm based. I'm in Melbourne. When people are streaming, I'm usually at work. And the other portion is, I think from an editing perspective, a lot of what I want to learn and do on the channel will require cutting in and out to different things, whether it's just different backgrounds on the green screen behind me, or actually doing like skits and vignettes and other bits that I would like to eventually get to, but perhaps aren't the best at right now. Alright, and that's actually a really good example of one of those cuts just there. While the game was loading, jump ahead now to the manager profile. So this is actually the profile I'm going to use, Sean, in the mixer. That is my real age. I'm nearly 30, which is insane to even think about. Because it's an English challenge, and because I might tempt myself later on with doing an English accent once I get a little bit more confident, I put London as my city of birth. That isn't true. And I've also gone with coaching qualifications of a Continental Pro license. I'd like to think if I was a full-time manager of a Championship or a Premier League side, I would have done all my badges. And Sunday League footballer, because that is my experience in the real world, and still play Sunday League to this day, but getting progressively fatter and more unfit as days pass. So the way I'm going to work this is we're just going to quickly scale through each of these teams. I'm going to look at all of their players, so we use Aston Villa as our example, highlight all of those with English nationality, and see how many they have. So we can see here, Aston Villa has 47. So currently leading the pack, 47 players at Aston Villa. And I'm going to go through each of the Championship and Premier League sides now, call out how many players they've got, and they can be the flag bearer for England. They can win the Premier League, get into the Champions League, head across to continental Europe, take on the best teams over there, like your Bayern Munichs, like your Barcelonas, and eventually bring the Champions League home to, in a sense, bring football home. And if we can also get some teams in the national side at the same point, fantastic. That's what we'll be aiming to do. So, next on the list, Barnsley has 44, Birmingham 51, Bolton 45, Brentford only has 16, which is insane. Bristol has 56 and I think is winning thus far. Burton have 44. Cardiff have 25. Derby have 49. Hull have 38. Ipswich have 44. Leeds have 33. Middlesbrough have 55. Millwall have 47. Norwich have 43. Forest have 42. Preston have 35. QPR have 58. Reading have 50. Sheffield United have 44. Sheffield Wednesday have 36. Sunderland have 39. But, more importantly, they have a 16-year-old from the Faroe Islands. That is just batshit crazy. And Wolves have 43 and 10 Portuguese, because I know we're all thinking it, I'm just saying it out loud. Okay, so that concludes our Championship teams, and I won't show you the leaderboard at the moment because there are a couple of interesting ones in there. But now we're going to go through the Premier League, and I kind of have a rough idea of who I think is going to be at the top here, but we'll see in a second. Arsenal have 41. Bournemouth have 60 people from England in their squads. That is insane. Brighton have 41. Burnley have 49. Chelsea have 46. Palace have 42. Everton have 50. Huddersfield have 39. Leicester have 37. Liverpool have 36. Man City have 42. Newcastle have 52. Southampton have 44. Stoke have 28. Swansea have 18. Tottenham have 49, and I won't lie, I thought it might be Tottenham. Watford have 38. West Brom have 43. And West Ham have 40. So, super surprising results there. Let's bring our highly detailed Excel sheet across here. Let's sort them largest to smallest. And by doing that, sitting comfortably by 2 whole spots, which I wouldn't have picked, is Bournemouth with 60 players. Runners up with QPR. Bristol City also had 56. Middlesbrough 55. Newcastle 52. But I'm going to be completely honest, this has taken me entirely by surprise because I was so convinced that I was going to be one of the teams that we hear about being great English sides, like Tottenham, who have so many players in the English national team at present. Everton, who I don't know if that's just me remembering back to the turn of the century, Everton teams always had great English talent coming through. Someone like West Ham that has such a really strong academy and a history of producing English talent. Someone like Burnley, who has been overperforming with a young English manager and has been kind of lauded as bringing back a return to great English football and great English teams. But for it to be Bournemouth, and don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled, they have a great squad. To be the top of that particular list, it's not who I would have even written down in my top 10 teams of who I would anticipate had the most English talent on their books across their under-18s, their under-23s, and their full-time team. Get rid of our highly detailed Excel spreadsheet there, and let's start our career as the manager of Bournemouth. Alright, let's save our game in here. Football's coming home. And you can see there I've cancelled out all my other saves and series, so if I want to play Football Manager, this is pretty much the only thing that I've got to go with, which is great. I can't wait. I think roughly structure-wise, what we'll have is I'll do like maybe 2 games a month that are actually live on videos, and then to get through the seasons a little bit quicker, do the rest of the month on just by playing through on my own. Then you'll at least get to see like marquee fixtures each month. We should get roughly about 10 episodes out of each season, fingers crossed. With 70 days remaining before the new game comes out, maybe we get through like a good 5 years before we actually have to cease this save and get stuck into the beta version. For those of you that haven't already watched the video, I'll be doing a German Bundesliga or lower division team for the beta save. To be determined. Keep an eye out for that video. So we see here, in the mix it takes Bournemouth hot seat. First job, I really did a horrible job with the face. It's as close as I could get, and I also don't wear glasses. I just thought they looked cool on the person. Board would like to welcome you formally to Bournemouth. Jeff Mostyn is the chairman. He's not the owner. We'll go through that in a little bit. Play possession football is the only philosophy I've got to work on, so we will have to figure that into our tactic, which we'll go through shortly. Let's just amend these now. So this is what I usually do. Jeff Mostyn's involved in hiring pretty much all of the staff. I don't really care. I do have to go and sack anyone that's not English though, and I will try and like nix anybody that he wants to bring in that isn't an English talent. He can also bring in, do the contract renewals for staff because I just can't be bothered. I mean, I could do it. If it was a lower league management save, I'd absolutely be doing it. But given that we're, at a high level here, we might as well make use of the Premier League staff that are afforded to us. All right, so Jason Tindall's going to take care of a lot of the stuff for the first team training. I'll keep an eye on individual training, and the relevant youth team staff can look after their particular squads. I actually don't know anything about Jason Tindall. I might give him a Google. All right, let's have a look at old Jason here. Okay, 40 years old, Mile End. He's an ex-defender, currently at Bournemouth with Eddie Howe. Youth career, didn't look like he played for anybody in particular, but was fortunate enough to finish his career at Bournemouth in 2011, probably when they were down a fair few other divisions. And he has also been Eddie Howe's assistant pretty much since he retired, so fair enough, he can hang around. He can teach me who the kit men are, introduce me to the cafeteria ladies. He'll be a good person to have on board. Right, now comes the really tricky part. Right, let's have a look at some of these. Oh God, some of the best players that we have are unfortunately not English. So, one, we should get decent money for them, but, oh God, we're going to have to recruit heavily. And then we're going to offer them to clubs. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm still going to leave them in the senior squad. So I don't know what your experiences are in the game, but I feel like when you're trying to get rid of first team players, if they're in the under 23s, nobody wants them because they think they're an under 23 standard player. This time I'm going to leave them here, and then as we get slowly closer to the kickoff of the season, if we haven't sold them, I'll push them back down and they can go from there. And, oh God, this is all that leaves us with. We have, at present, 13 players, but 2 of them are injured. Junior Stanislas, who is out for another 2 to 4 months, and Callum Wilson, who is a really good player, is out for another 3 to 4 months. So we're probably looking at roughly around June, July, August, September, maybe October for at least one of them to get back into that starting lineup. So the task is set out for us. We've probably got about 7 or 8 spots that we need to recruit for, and recruit relatively quickly. I'll just tidy up the under 18s here. I'll put anyone over the age of 17 into the under 23 squad, and that pretty much highlights who we've got. So there's a couple of different prospects we can look at here. Brendan Camp looks like he'll be alright in a little while. Ryan Glover might actually grow into a decent player, as might Antonio Diaz. So we'll keep an eye on them as the season progresses. Right, so we can see here, we've got some players with some decent potential. Both Jordan Ibe and Lewis Cook are relatively young and look like they have a decent enough ability to already compete at this league, and then also the potential to go on and be absolute stars for the club and get into that England squad and do some of the things that we spoke about at the start of the video. So we will try and build a tremendous amount of what we're doing around those 2 players and their most suitable roles. So Lewis Cook is a Messiah, an advanced playmaker or a deep line playmaker with defend. And Jordan Ibe is pretty much a straight up right winger. And they both have relatively decent traits, so that should be pretty easy for us to put a plan around for them. Looking at the rest of the squad, the back line's not too bad. We've got Adam Smith out on the right wing. We probably need to pick up another right fullback. Simon Francis and Steve Cook as 2 central defenders. We probably need maybe 2 more, depending on what's available within the market. Charlie Daniels and Tyrone Mings as left backs, Andrew Sermon, Lewis Cook, Dan Gosling as central midfielders. I'll get one more, but we might look at maybe a younger player. I think Sermon and Gosling are pretty much competing for a space, even though Sermon looks like one of our better players left, because Lewis Cook, I'd like to get him out there as much as possible while he's still got that potential. Mark Pugh on the left with Junior Stanislas. Jordan Ibe on the right. We'll probably try and bring in another winger that can play both sides. I actually really like that all three of them here can play on either side. So if things aren't working out, it gives us greater depth on the bench, and it also gives us the ability to eventually play inverted wingers when I have the hang of this team. Jermaine Defoe, old man, father time up front, still somehow 3.5 stars in this squad. Callum Wilson, I think, will be the star for the team once he eventually gets back, and you can kind of tell by his rating here and his value, 22.5 million. He is a decent player to get, but we're probably going to need, I'm going to say maybe like another 9 players, because goalkeeper, we haven't got anything at the moment, so that's obviously going to be a critical one for us. But first, before we get into all of our transfer detail, let's go and have a look at our tactic here. If you think back to the most traditional English formation, and I hate to quote Mike Bassett, and I don't know if I'm going to beat this yet, but we're going to play a 4-4-2. It is the most famous English formation. I think it gives you a really good balance within this game. It still can be successful. We saw how well it worked for Leicester a couple of seasons ago when they won the English Premier League. I think it's kind of coming back in vogue as well. I know there was a Monaco team that used it a few years ago as they went on their great Champions League run, albeit they had some incredible players in that squad. But I'm going to time-lapse forward and quickly throw this together. So this is our 4-4-2 football's coming home standard. I'm working in some of the cliches of English football, which, like, whatever. Do what you got to do. If you want to abuse me in the comment section, that's absolutely fine. That proper big man, little man combination up front with the target man on a support duty and an advanced forward trying to run in behind. So if we get the ball forward early, target man knocks it on, little guy gets in behind, scores. Think of like Heskey and Owen. It can still be done, but it'll be really important for the players that we bring in, particularly for this target man role, I think. So we'll have a look at a couple of different players that are available in the transfer market and are English as well. Midfield runs pretty much the same. What I would have liked to have done was get a supporting setup on both sides or an attacking setup on both sides. This is purely limited by I want to bring Jordan Ibe through as quickly as possible. He's actually an attacking midfielder, right? So I think by bringing him back to this level, but by allowing him to have some sort of creative freedom or play a little bit further up the park, we'll get the best out of him. In the centre, I'm looking for sort of that Paul Scholes, Roy Keane combination. Box-to-box midfielder would be Keane in this sense. I was going to do a ball-winning midfielder, but I actually really like the deep-lying playmaker with a defence status. This is loosely based on an article written on FM Scout that should be live on their Twitter page at the minute. I will put a link in the description as well to some of the trials and tribulations other players have had using a 4-4-2 and what they've done to actually keep it together and keep it compact. Backline, super no nonsense, fullbacks on support. I'd like to see them getting forward and helping out the wingers, getting those balls into the box and maximising the amount of players we should have in the box, which will be the advanced forward, the target man, and hopefully the box-to-box midfielder can start making those late runs into the box as well. And goalkeeper, just very simple. There are a couple of different individual instructions across a couple of these roles here, but nothing that's like out of the ordinary. And to start with, I'm going to begin with no team instructions. What I want to do is give them maybe like 5 games playing in this setup where they don't have particular instructions. We can see what we're doing really well. And obviously the other one, the board request that we retain possession, may mean we have to go to shorter passing or retain possession instructions. But I want to give them an opportunity to perform and see what we're doing well and see what we need to work on before doing any team instructions. I think people are way too guilty of putting together complex tactics that have a million different player instructions or a million different team instructions without really letting the game flow or understanding their squad. More than anything, as Football Manager kind of grows and develops and the match engine gets more complex, you can't just copy and paste the same tactics to every different team and expect to have success with it. There aren't really set and forget formations the way that there used to be. So what I'm also going to do, defensive setting for if we're in a game and we're 2-0 up and we just want to hold on to it, and an attacking setting. So they are identical in terms of player roles and individual instructions, and they don't have team instructions. It is just if we have the ability to train 3 separate tactics, I want to have the capacity in games to go to defensive and go to attacking and not really have too much change, for everyone to be familiar with the structure and familiar with how we're working. So if we were going to use this roughly and put our best team out there at present, it would look a little something like this. So you can already see there's three big holes that we need to bring in a first team quality player for, and we may look at like either some developing players that are looking to break into the England national squad, or existing players in the national squad that are at lesser teams, or players that have been in it in the last couple of years that maybe are looking to get back in. For goalkeeper, a box-to-box midfielder, and a target man. I'm also a little bit sketchy on this central defensive partnership, but we'll see who's available. And then maybe as a secondary one, I would like to get another high quality left-footed winger, because unfortunately both Pugh and Stanislas are right-footed options that can play on the left. So ideally a lefty would just give us better balance, I think, although Charlie Daniels is a really good option. On the bench, we also have Tyrone Mings, who I think is just a squad player. Andrew Sermon, who potentially could get in this team if we maybe look at developing Cook a little bit differently. Gosling, who's a decent player. Stanislas is obviously injured, but may come in as a starting option instead of Pugh or Ive, depending on how they're going. And Callum Wilson is the big one as well. You'd think he'd probably, in a fully fit squad, you'd think Defoe would come off the bench and Wilson would start, but obviously he's still out for another 4 months. So this is where we're at right now. And I always think this is a really helpful idea, just putting down the team that you have to see where the biggest holes are. So ideally we're going to have 2 players available for every position, roughly a squad of 20, 21, 22, something like that. But obviously our key areas that we need to bring in are the 3 that you see across here. Okay, and just like that, we have a pretty comprehensive shortlist of the players and positions that we need to recruit for. So I have changed tack just a little bit. I actually don't think we really need any more central midfielders. I think we can manage with a couple of the youngsters that we have around the club, and also getting Lewis Cook as that box-to-box role, bringing Sermon into the team. He's one of our better players, so we should try and integrate him in there, and Dan Gosling as that sort of 3rd or 4th player that can play either role. So what I've done is put together a list of 4 of the most needed candidates for each position. Obviously goalkeeper is a big one. Centre back, I do think we need like maybe a left-sided player that can play back there, or a bit more pace than what we currently have. We need that dual-sided winger, and I've gotten a little bit carried away with what I thought I needed and what I can actually get. And then obviously we need that target man up front. So how I think it's actually going to end up looking is if we go to our squad here and just look at our English players across here, we're probably going to have to, just based on the budgets and stuff we have, use an in-club backup goalkeeper. So Patrick O'Flaherty is someone that we'll look at. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. Apologies to any Irish people watching. Jack Simpson is like a 4th choice central defender. He's left-footed, so he gives us that option. And Michael Njoli, probably butchering that one as well, as that left winger option. So just so that, you know, those last few squad positions, like player 20, 21, 22, are just, you know, club youngsters who are just there as backups. They can come off the bench in cup games, or we can give them run out if we play lower league opposition in the League Cup or something like that. But that's what provides us the depth, because I don't think we have enough budget, even selling a lot of our international players, to bring in more than like 3 or 4 people. And the way that each of these are structured is that there's like an ideal person that we'd go after. So like Jack Butland, I think, is the perfect option for who we'd be looking for as a goalkeeper. He already has been in and around the English setup. He's got England caps to his name. He's still only 24 years old, and he's playing at Stoke. So like they're not going to want, you know, it's $200 million for him or anything like that, or £200 million, sorry. Then defensively, I think Ben Gibson or Rob Holding are probably our 2 best options. Rob Holding, I think, will be tough to get because he's at Arsenal. They don't need the money for him, but potentially maybe we can look at getting him in on loan or something like that. You get 2 long-term loan signings for the season. Maybe he could be one of them. And we keep the other one up our sleeves in case there's like a long-term injury, or a half-decent striker comes on the market, or as we get towards the end of the transfer window, there might be people that have kind of cracked it and asked to be put on the transfer list, and you can try and bring them in that way. But for the start, this is what we're going to go with. They're all getting scouted at the moment as well. For those wing options, Solly March from Brighton, I don't know a tremendous amount about him, but it looks like he has some decent stats here. He's left-footed as well, which I think gives us good balance. We've looked at Nathan Redmond. I'd love to bring Nathan Redmond in, but I think he's kind of like a want and not necessarily a need. We really need to get that target man support as a priority. We need to get a high-quality goalkeeper in as a priority. And Jack Grealish is injured for quite a while. He's obviously someone that develops quite well in the game. The fact that he's interested at all is fantastic. Scott Sinclair, bringing him back from Celtic. I actually thought he was left-footed when I put him on this list. He's not. He is right-footed, but he's got decent pace. He has played around the league before, so he knows what's required in the Premier League, and he could potentially be a really good player for us as well. Then up top, we're looking at Ashley Barnes. I think he's probably the most likely of the four that we'd actually be able to get in. He's a decent player, obviously played at Burnley now for a few years, played at a Premier League level, knows what it takes, but has that English sort of, those key English traits that we'd be looking for in a target man. He's real strong. He's got good stamina. He moves around relatively well. Finishing probably needs a little bit of work. His heading needs a little bit of work. So not the best technically, but mentally and physically, he'd be exactly what we're after. Then you've got the likes of Troy Deeney, who I do think will be tough to get and is also injured. The likes of Andy Carroll, who is perpetually injured. I'm not sure if we really want to add him to the list. I'd hate to get into a situation where we had Andy Carroll and Callum Wilson as our front two, because they are just so injury prone all the time. I think Callum Wilson's missed a ton of games throughout the course of his career. Andy Carroll is obviously in and out of the side every week. So we'll probably prioritise Ashley Barnes as the first one, as the cheapest option. And I'd really love to bring in Peter Crouch just for his cult status and all that sort of thing. But he just signed a new contract that goes for 2 years. So I don't think, you can see here, Crouch has recently signed a new deal with Stoke. Usually if it's like a first team player and they're a bit older and they've been at their club for a little while, which he has been at Stoke, it's tough to bring them in because they have that kind of loyalty to the team and they aren't necessarily looking to move if they're already secured for 2 years and know their position in that particular squad. So I'm assuming he's like a leader within that club. What we've also done is put together our pre-season schedule. You can see here there is a trip to Austria for our pre-season training camp. You can't avoid that, unfortunately. What I did was cancel out all the rest of our other friendlies. All I really want to do is play local opposition and belt the living shit out of them, and then lower level opposition in Austria itself, and just boost morale as much as possible. You'll hear people refer to the game as morale manager for a variety of different reasons, and really boosting that as much as you can and as often as you can, particularly in pre-season as you're learning new systems, shapes, formations, whatever else, is super important. But then what I've also done is just before, the weekend before the first game of the season, booked a big friendly, hopefully at home, with Paris Saint-Germain, and hopefully they'll come across, bring Neymar, bring Mbappe, bring the rest of the stars that they have in their team, and I'll actually show that game on this episode. So changing tact a little bit. I know I said this would be pretty much an every click type thing. I don't think you need to see me going in and negotiating with clubs for the amounts that they want. So we'll go forward, we'll skip ahead. I'll try and bring in probably one of each of these position players, and try and get rid of some of the key players that we have outbound. We'll do a little bit of review and then we'll play the game against PSG. So again, through the magic of editing, I'll see you guys again in 2 seconds. Okay, and just like that, we've jumped ahead probably a good month, really. Let's go and have a look at how we've done so far in pre-season, and then I'll go through transfers and stuff. Been absolutely belting teams so far, but that was very deliberate. I did say when we set up our friendlies, we just wanted to have good morale boosting wins. Our pre-season tour of Austria went really well. We won all those games, albeit against lower league opposition. Now is our first real test of pre-season against Paris Saint-Germain. We will go through and play this game in its entirety. But before we do, let's have a look at who we brought in throughout the off-season and who we've been able to offload as well. So over here on the right, the out column, Royce Wiggins went to Hull City for relatively cheap. Lys Mousset went to Troyes in France. Jordan Holmes went to Blackburn. Ryan Fraser was the only one that went for a really decent amount of money to Leicester for £10.25 million. Idris Ima went on a free. Adam Federici went for 2.7 to Stoke, which is good. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten rid of the players that we wanted to get rid of. So we've still got, if we have a look here, in our reserve setup, Josh King, who's worth £17.75 million, won't leave. I've currently got him listed as like sell at any price. Harry Arter, no one's come in for. Asmir Begovic, no one's come in for. Artur Burak, no one's come in for. Nathan Ake, Emerson Hyndman, Brad Smith. Patrick O'Flaherty was initially going to be like our backup goalkeeper for this season. Then the little piece of shit changed his nationality to Irish, so he's representing his grandparents over there. So naturally, we had to let go of him. Similar, we had a youth player that changed his nationality to Italian, so I immediately mulched his contract, and he can go and live on the street. There's no one really here that we could look at bringing up any further, but we have had some decent players come in. It was between Andy Carroll, Troy Deeney, and Ashley Barnes as to who we were going to bring in for that target man role. Ashley Barnes had one. They accepted a relatively low fee for him. It's £14 million in total, but it was about £3 million up front and the rest loaded throughout the course of the season across 3 payments. And I think we also made a commitment that if we ever sell him on, we have to give some of that to Burnley as well. But that kept his price down. He wanted relatively reasonable wages. 60k a week isn't too bad for a Premier League player. Andy Carroll had a really long history list. If you go to Ashley Barnes' injuries here, he's had 2, but they were like 12 months apart and they were a couple of years ago. Whereas if we look at Andy Carroll's injury history, you can see here in the last 12 months alone, he's had whiplash, a groin strain at a major level, a thigh strain at a major level, and for his contract, he wanted like over 100k a week, which we just can't afford that. We don't have the budget. We're kind of already working with pretty much nothing. And Troy Deeney was in a similar vein. He wanted to be a key player. He wanted to earn a ton of money. Ashley Barnes was the most conservative option. I know he's probably not like the superstar that we perhaps hoped we'd get, but at least it gives us scope to improve. And he can stay here and be a backup option once we do find that superstar and bring them in. Probably the closest thing we've made to a superstar signing is Jack Butland joining from Stoke. £20 million in total. I think we're paying £7 million up front and then 13 across 3 payments for the rest of the season, so it doesn't cripple us financially. 4-star goalkeeper, he's in the England squad already, so he's a fantastic pickup and only 24 years of age. Like, it's really probably Jordan Pickford might be the only improvement we could make on him as far as English goalkeepers go at their current level in the game. Keenan Davis has joined from Aston Villa. It's a strange one seeing like a promising youth prospect that Aston Villa are loaning out going up a division, but we needed backup and he can play as a target man support. He is injured at the moment, but we'll go through him shortly later. We picked up Ben Gibson from Middlesbrough. I thought it would be a good idea to go through the teams that got relegated last season. Borough have quite a few half-decent players if you're trying to pick up guys on the cheap. We signed him for £14 million. Again, I think it's front-loaded with £3 million initially, and then another like 10 or so, or 11, I guess, across the rest of the season. And we've also signed Scott McTominay on loan, just to be a backup box-to-box midfielder to kind of give us good depth across those positions. So if we look at our squad as it's laid out here, we've got Jack Butland. Will Dennis is the youngster that's come up from the under-18s. Please don't ever get injured, Jack Butland, because Will Dennis is not ready for Premier League football. We've got Adam Smith and Simon Francis as our right fullbacks. We've got Charlie Daniels and Tyrone Mings as the left fullback options. Steve Cook, Ben Gibson and Jack Simpson, another of the youngsters in our team. Probably not ready at this stage, but capable of being a deputy. As our centre backs, we could potentially look at bringing in a 4th centre back. There is somebody that I'm hoping will be on loan by the end of the season, but we'll talk about him later. Andrew Sermon, we've kind of pivoted a little bit. Andrew Sermon will play as that deep line defensive playmaker. With the defend, Lewis Cook we've turned into a bit of a box-to-box midfielder. Fingers crossed he can work on some of his finishing and his final pass and concentration and that sort of stuff. But with his potential, we'd be crazy to not try and get him out there every week. Dan Gosling will be the backup with Scott McTominay as well, just to give us 4 across those 2 positions. Mark Pugh will probably play on the left-hand side to start with. Junior Stanislas is still injured. We've got Michael Jolie also there, just a youth prospect. Ideally, there is someone that I'm still trying to bring in. We'll talk about him shortly. And of course, Jordan Ibe, our other really high potential player that we're looking to develop a bit further. He will hopefully start progressing relatively quickly. He's been in pretty good form across pre-season, but like I said, we've been beating the shit out of semi-professional and amateur teams, so he hasn't had too much of a challenge, but fingers crossed he can move that into the system, into the regular season and find some form there. And then Ashley Barnes and Jermaine Defoe will be our starting partnership up front. Keenan Davis, who we spoke about earlier, will be that backup target man, and then hopefully once Callum Wilson is actually fit and ready to go, we can integrate him either as a complete forward or as an advanced forward, either in tandem with Defoe or with Barnes, depending on how form's going and all that sort of stuff. So, injury update, Keenan Davis is out for 3 to 6 weeks. Callum Wilson has at least 5 weeks or 2 months to go for his cruciate ligaments, and who knows how he'll come back when he actually does. And Junior Stanislas still has about a month out with a hip injury. So, we do have enough to get through these first 2 games. We are going to be running on a threadbare squad for a little while. But there is one more player that I've been trying to get in for the last few weeks, and it's Nathan Redmond. So Nathan Redmond is taking really reasonable wages for his ability and for his talent. He doesn't want an insane amount of money, but Southampton do. So Southampton are very good at getting value for their assets. So I've got about £7.5 million worth of budget that I can work with for him, and I'm trying to work them down to get it. So we actually have them agreed to Fee at the moment, that would require 9.75 million deducted from our current wage budget. I need to get about 2 million off. So I'm actually going to cancel the transfer, and then hopefully we'll give it a couple of days. We'll play this friendly, and then we'll go back in for Nathan Redmond and try and get that player. We actually also previously had Jack Grealish had agreed to terms and was coming through for really cheap. I think we were paying 5 million up front and like another 9 million over 3 payments. But unfortunately, he failed his medical when he arrived, so he would have been a great option having that left-hand side. Obviously, he's still not the left-footed player that I've been looking for. He's out for another 7 weeks and 3 months. So if things don't work out with Redmond and we can't get him in, we do still have some wiggle room in that transfer budget to maybe go back and have a look at Jack Grealish again once his injury is healed. Hopefully, he'll be on light training or something by that stage. We've scouted a whole bunch of players from across the English leagues, pretty much every English player that's in there, and Leon Bailey, because I can't help myself. If he declares himself as English, I'm definitely going to try and get him in some way. But like, these are long-term people that we're kind of just keeping an eye on, not necessarily anybody that will go out after at this point in the season. We have used our 2 long-term loans for the season in McTominay and Davis. They're both here till the end of the year. Anybody else that we loan in throughout the course of the season will be like on a short-term 6-month deal. So we potentially can't look at any more loans until January anyway. But enough of that. Let's go in here and play this last game of our pre-season. Oh, we get to name our captain for the season. I always try and do this, and I talk to Francis, because one of 2 things will happen. He'll either accept it and say that he's fine with it, or he'll say, I think you're in the wrong. I still believe I'm the best person for the job. And you assertively say, I'll keep faith in that, but I want it repaid. And he says, thanks for giving me another chance, boss. I won't let you down. So that spikes his morale a little bit. And given that he's the captain, he's probably one of the team leaders at the club as well. So it's not the nicest way to do it, but it does get the job done on occasion. I'm not going to worry about moving the vice captain. I think Sermon will play the majority of the games, probably even more than Francis will. So that's absolutely fine with me. So what I think this friendly will actually do is show us where we're up to in our preseason and where we still have to improve. So we are, of course, starting with Butland in goal, a backline of Daniels, Gibson, Cook and Smith across. They're all actually pretty solid, nearly 3.5 star across the board there. Mark Pugh will play on the left wing until we can find someone to come in that's either left-footed or Nathan Redmond. Lewis Cook is the box-to-box role. Sermon is a deep line playmaker. Ibe on the right-hand side with that attack function. Barnes up top as our target man. Defoe running off the back behind him. And let's have a look at PSG. They have just got 5-star players and 5-star potential coming out of their arse. Kevin Trapp in goal. Kurzawa, Kimpembe, Marquinhos, Munier. Diarra. I didn't realise Diarra was there. I thought he was playing at like Marseille or somewhere. Lo Celso, I don't know too much about him. Verratti, who's obviously been a wonder kid in the game for years and years. Neymar, who's a superstar of the game. They've brought Ben Arfa back into the squad. Cavani leading the line up top. On the bench, they've got likes of Rabiot, Draxler, Pastore, Mbappe, Thiago Silva, not even getting in the squad. Di Maria, Alves. It's an insane group of not just 11, but 20 people that they have within their squads. So, assertively, go out there and show me what you've got. They're a place up for grab. Impress me. No one's responded particularly well. I'm just going to tell the defence as well. No, I'm not. I've changed my mind. Indecision. It's already rife throughout this pre-season. Fingers crossed, we just don't go 4 goals down inside the opening 10 minutes. That's all I'm really hoping for. Given it's the first game of the season as well, I'm going to adjust some of these as well. Oh, here they come. Ben Arfa with the ball. Verratti looks for Ben Arfa again. He's gotten in the box, cuts it back, finds Cavani, and thankfully he pushes that one wide. Yeah, I'm just going to adjust a couple of these. So match stats up the top. Latest scores just here. And latest event updates, which will eventually, once the season starts, become the league table so that we can see exactly where we're up to. We've nearly gotten outside of the first 10 minutes without conceding, which is great. We've had 66% of the ball, which is fantastic. It is a home game for us at Dean Court. But as you can see, they've had all the shots. They've had the only one on target. They've also had all the fouls. No yells to speak of, and we are dominating possession without doing too much. Looks like Ibe might be struggling a little bit with fitness. His conditions dropped a lot quicker than everybody else's. We are being seriously overrun in midfield, but that's to be expected. We're playing 2 central midfielders up against their 3. They haven't got anybody here that's like streaking away as being on an incredibly high rating. Kevin Trapp and Ben Arfa are leading the line for them, so at least Neymar's being kept quiet, and so is Cavani. Though Neymar with the corner now finds Ben Arfa. It's cleared in. The ball comes out to Barnes. Are we on here for a counter? There's a man out left if we can find him. Goes to Pugh now. Can he get the ball in the box? He does. Backstick runner. Oh, Jordan was out there, but now it's with Barnes. Oh, Kimpemba with a good tackle, and he plays the ball forward. That's intercepted by Cook. Smith now to Sermon, to Cook again, to Lewis, not Steve. Kurzawa with the ball. It's a shoddy clearance back into a dangerous area. Sermon and Cook just keeping the ball between them. Finds Pugh on the switch. Gets the ball in. Defoe! And we've taken a lead. First, I know it's only a preseason game, but it's PSG, and that is a great connection to see between Barnes and Defoe up top. It's a great ball here by Lewis Cook. Splits it out to Pugh. He hangs the ball up there. Barnes knocks it down, and Defoe, little fox in the box himself, pokes that one home. And I should just make the speed of those replays just a little bit slower so that I can talk through them a little bit. Might make the regular one a little bit slower as well, so that if I'm doing commentary, I can talk through it. Ibe with the ball in now. Trapp hasn't held it. Marquinhos gets it away, but it looks like it's going to be Pugh again to Sermon. Sermon finds Cook. Cook plays a silly crossfield ball. Oh, we found Defoe though. Oh, and Jesus. I think it was Jordan Ibe, who must have Jordan on the back of his kit instead of Ibe. Just played a square ball across the top of the box, and Defoe nearly found the far corner. Oh, I did not expect to do that well in this game. I really thought we were going to lose like 4 or 5 now. It's the first actual game we've played against decent opposition. And Cook has been everywhere in terms of highlights that we've seen. So we weathered the storm for the first 30 minutes, and now we're getting a decent little spell of highlights. Barnes finds Ibe on the overlap with the shot, and Trapp with a decent save to get it out to his right. It's Jordan with an O. Interesting. Doesn't like Mike. Munier heads the ball away. Neymar's on halfway. I'm hoping this is the end of the highlight and we're not about to see him go on some trademark solo run. He is getting forward. Cavani's in the middle on his own. Oh, and thankfully Cook gets back. Cook has been everywhere. What a game he's having. Why am I jinxing things? We're 35 minutes in. I've got to calm down. And this game's for nothing. Who cares if we get beaten 5-1? Right, so 6 shots now each. 3 on target for us. 3 fouls to them. No yellow cards. 50-50 on possession. So they've brought that bit back as well. Not a tongue twister. I'm just getting too excited. Jermaine Defoe, 7.0 rating. Jack Button's obviously having a good game. Seems very composed. Neymar's actually started to come into it a bit for them, which is a concern. But we make it to half time with a 1-goal lead, which is fantastic. So let's actually just go passionate. I'm happy with your performance so far. Keep it up. Just give everyone a little bit of a morale boost. Nothing too bad that we have to worry about there. This likely will be the starting 11 that we have for the Manchester United game, which is next week, which we will cover in the next episode. So I just want to try and get as much time through these players as I can. I might look to take Ibe and Pugh off in the second half, and we'll see who we can bring on. Not for any particular reason, just to get some run in other players' legs. Looks like Cook's rating has dropped, but he's been fantastic in all the highlights we've seen, so I'm not sure what he's doing wrong. They've brought on Yuri for Kurzawa. Mbappe's on the right-hand side for Ben Arfa. I'm not sure who Gomez is. I don't know him as a player. I also don't know Lo Celso? I'm butchering these pronunciations, but Giovanni Lo Celso, 21-year-old Argentine advanced playmaker. Looks like he's a pretty solid player as well, which is to be expected. They're going to bring quality off the depth. Now they're starting to make a raft of changes, so we might look at making a couple of our own. We'll take off Cook as the box-to-box, and we'll bring on Scott McTominay in the same role. He's got pretty decent potential, but he's not our player, so I'm not going to push him too hard. He's more just there for depth. Simon Francis can come on for Smith, who's only on a 6.7. And we might also go with Jolie on for Mark Pugh. See if we get that bit of balance by having a left-footed player out there on the left-hand side. You can tell by their kit numbers that they are just youngsters. Let's just say there's no pressure on them. And McTominay's relaxed. Francis is fine. And Jolie seems relaxed as well, which is great. We'll confirm the talk, get back out there, we'll play the game. And let's see if we can hold on for 30 more minutes for a pretty famous victory, even though it's only in pre-season. Bodes well for the season ahead if we can actually be alright when we're playing at home and retaining possession a little bit more. And as I've said that, we've slipped to 45%. And you can see as they're turning the screws and bringing more players off the bench, they are now up to 13 shots, 3 on target. We haven't really seen like a proper goal-scoring highlight. There was a cross early in the game that Cavani headed over, but we managed to keep him relatively subdued, which is good. Cavani looks frustrated. Dani Alves looks frustrated. Neymar still only on a 7.0, but we've only really had 1 or 2 highlights for him. Vardy's had a decent game, but you kind of expect that a little bit. 10 minutes remaining. Have we got anyone I can bring on for Jordan Ibe? Because he looks absolutely knackered. Can Gosling play out on the right, maybe? Not particularly. What if I change him to just a supporting winger? Okay, he's not going to like it, but I just want to make sure Jordan Ibe doesn't have a knock, hasn't picked up any injuries. It's the last game of pre-season. The last thing we want is for anybody to be picking up knocks that's going to keep me out for a couple of weeks, because we already have 3 or 4 players. We're only running a threadbare squad of 21 at the minute. Like, we don't want further players picking up injuries going into that first part of pre-season. Sermon with the ball in now, finds Gosling at the top of the box. Oh, it's a ball in, and Yuri played it back, but I think Cook's actually going to be offside here. Yes, he is. He did look it in the replay, to be fair. And I haven't actually gone through and done any set-piece routines or anything like that. I might make that a specific episode in future. Essentially what I want to do is just give it like a month, play through probably August and a bit into September before we start doing anything too crazy in terms of our formations. Hang on, here comes Mbappe. We are in extra time, and thankfully he takes the wrong option when he had a space to attack and shoots from distance. France with the ball now, plays to Sermon. Gosling just needs to retain possession in that area. He tries to hang a ball up for Barnes when it probably wasn't on. Cavani's in now. There's 40 seconds remaining, and it's Francis with a decent tackle to get the ball away. Got a throw in here. Yuri B. 20 seconds remaining of extra time. Sermon with the ball, wins the ball back. Good tackle on Neymar. It's not one that I expected to be saying this early in the season. Neymar versus Sermon. Defoe with the ball now. Finds Njoli with McTominay inside, and the referee calls full time. What a victory. That is absolutely fantastic. I think at the start of the game, I was sitting there talking about, hey, I expect us to get beaten here. I expect us to have like a 4-0 drubbing. But that is just a phenomenal response from everybody. 8 shots, 15 to them. That's to be expected. They're PSG. 48% possession. We are at home. We did boss it for a little bit there, but they came back into it. Ashley Barnes gets player of the match, and Jermaine Defoe with the winning strike. Thankfully, though, none of us have gotten any injuries or knocks that I'm aware of. Let's just reward the team. I'm just trying to keep morale high. That's all I want to do for the first 6 weeks of the season. I wasn't expecting such a good performance for a pre-season run out. I'm very happy with that. And everybody's responded really well, which is great. So, let's jump out of this match. Bournemouth hold firm to deny PSG. Bournemouth had luck on their side as they played out an entertaining friendly fixture against PSG. Experienced striker Jermaine Defoe gave Bournemouth the lead with a place shot from close range in the 25th minute. Damn fucking right. Ashley Barnes, player of the match, fantastic. If we can get some decent results out of him, or decent ratings out of him, or just production, or any sort of bond between Barnes and Defoe is going to be super important for us, getting those goals to keep us in the division. But it puts us in good stead. I'm really excited for the season now. So what we might do is wrap up this video then. We have covered a tremendous amount. I am conscious of the length of it. If you've sat through the whole thing, I do really appreciate it. Thank you. We'll come back in the next episode. We'll do the first 2 games of the season against Man United and Burnley. And we might also skip ahead and do maybe the last day of the transfer window. I'll have a look and see exactly where we're at and what we're doing. So really excited about the way preseason has gone. We've had fantastic results. We still haven't conceded yet, which is great. We picked up signings that we wanted to in a couple of key areas. Yes, there are 1 or 2 holes in the squad, and yes, it's relatively threadbare if a key player gets injured for a long period. But there's a lot to be excited about, I think. I'm excited to bring football home. I'm excited for England as a nation to start getting behind Bournemouth as their representative in continental competition. And I'm looking forward to putting together a decent run of results in the Premier League as well. If you enjoyed the video and want to be kept up to date as when future videos are uploaded on the channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button below. Or alternatively, you can follow In The Mixer FM on Twitter. There will be a link in the description as well. But more than anything though, thank you very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the series so far. As always, I've been Sean, and I will see you in the Mixer.